Well, thanks for coming along. It's just a small gathering this month. Very quickly to get you in the mood, let's just talk about MVPs. I don't know if the mentors would agree with this. I think an MVP is a strategy. It's about iterative learning. You know, you apply your effort, you learn, you adjust, you come back again, you learn, and it's a sort of cycle of learning. It has the core features that allow the product to be deployed and no more. And it's not a minimal product. This is not about a product. It's a strategy to discover the market. So if you're going into uncharted strategic space, you cannot benchmark from existing participants because there ain't any. So you therefore have to have a search pattern to find where those islands of value are. And that's what I think an MVP is. Is that right?
What I would also say is that we have to take care when we think about uncharted territory, because it may be uncharted territory for you as an individual or you as a team, and it may not be uncharted territory for somebody else. So you might find, for example, in the case of an estate agent, the market data might be present in the market, and the players and the market itself might already be present, but you may not have access to the data. So it's really a learning. I mean, for me, MVP is about learning. And uncharted is fine. If it's uncharted for you, that doesn't mean that, you know, it doesn't mean that it's just exclusively brand new market.
Okay, no, I think that's a good point. It's a search strategy to find out what fits. And if you think about the alternative, it's, big company does tons of market research, spends a lot of money, builds a product, takes a couple of years, launches it, and often fails. And there are lots of good examples of big companies launching products that fail who should have known better. You think a huge company with resources can get this right every time, but they can't. And the reason is the market normally humbles you. That's the whole thing about this. There's a book called Lean Startup by Eric Ries, who I think this comes from, the concept of the MVP. And Eric Ries is an entrepreneur, I think, in Silicon Valley, and he came up with this concept. Is that right, Olga? Yeah. He formalized it, yeah. So if you want to read on from this is a really good book to get. Moving on, we've got some mentors. Olga, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks, Eddie. So my name's Olga, and I run, two companies now from a base in Portugal, where all of our developers and designers sit. We specialise in helping early-stage companies or companies who are large and want to do something new, because we were born out of the ability to iterate products ourselves. And one thing we learned along the way is that the actual doing part of writing software can take a very, very short amount of time if you test all your assumptions and plan really well along the way. So you've really got to know your audience to understand what is the time and money that you should spend on a minimal viable product yourself, or the process, in these words.
Hi, I'm Elias. I'm the founder of BitSilk, and we help early stage companies and teams and founders to tie down their ideas, figure out what they need to do, and build an MVP, and then we help iterate that to a certain stage, and then help them bring in their own team and pass on the product to them. So we cover all the different platforms, web apps, all of that. So it's a very similar service, except that we focus on a different time period. And we've been doing this for a few years, and I'm looking forward to working through the questions with you.
Okay, hi guys. I'm Farid. Let's keep it short and sweet. We're a software engineering consultancy, software engineering shop for finance. We help large corporates and small startups essentially build software faster using advanced, software engineering methods, so agile and lean and all of the kind of MVP stuff that you'll be learning about today.
Okay, so how do we split everyone up? We just what does Farid have? You're number 2. You're 3. So I thought what we do at the end is we have a sort of learning reflection, and we'll just go around the room and ask for the learning that you've had. Michael, should we start with you? Do you want to just tell us your thoughts about the session?
Really very useful sessions. Talked a lot about how you can identify whether there is an actual need for your product. So to an extent, I've zoomed ahead and I can see the product in my head, but I haven't really gone out and checked that the potential client base have a desire for that product.
So market validation.
Market validation is the posh word for it. And then looking at it from a broader perspective and breaking down the business using the business model canvas, that was quite useful because in the way we use it, I can come back to who my early adopters could be. So I'm definitely going to go away and start filling that and pulling that together.
Okay, so it was useful. You found that valuable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Olga was one of our mentors. How did that work for you as an expert, a mentor?
Well, being from a technology company, it's always so interesting how little you should be talking about technology at this stage. So this is the key takeaway, and I advise everybody to always advise this, but events like this just really reminds me. Don't think about the platform, don't think about the language, don't think about anything until you really understand what you're trying to do. And it's very counterintuitive. Look, I make my money out of developing people's products, but I'll only keep making money out of developing those people's products if they're successful. So it's completely in our interest to help people build something really small so that users the least amount of their budgets because they've spent the time to plan, and then help them to grow it so that the profits can become much higher. Because if you spend all your money in phase one, then you're not really going to go too far too fast.
Thank you very much. Elias, how was the session for you?
Well, obviously there was a little bit of overlap between the tables because you tend to then branch out into different areas, and I hope it was valuable nonetheless. It was certainly interesting to hear all of these ideas in different stages, and technology is always a tool, and first you need to know what you want to do, and you need to reduce the impact in terms of cost and in terms of time that the product or that the tool has ultimately. Because if it fails, it should fail with as little impact as possible. And ultimately, I think it comes down to gathering as much data as possible in terms of service, going out, talking to the people that you want to sell to, and starting something small with getting as much data on how people interact with that. Email the first 1,000 users of your platform and speak to them directly. And I think that is the key takeaway. Don't build too much too fast, but just focus on gathering as much data as possible.
Brilliant. Sen, do you want to?
Basically just found out how important it is to do the MVP, because my app is for an existing market, and so I need to find out whatever new features I can add to it, and basically find out if it is actually worth doing, and then basically take it on forward, then do the MVP, and also do a basically market research, then decide if it is worth basically pursuing it.
Okay, brilliant. Farid, do you want to?
A great session. I think what was really interesting for us was the diversity of the number of the offerings that people were bringing to the table, which was really really quite exciting actually. So like the whole range of consumer apps to strategic non-banking like fully disruptive solutions, which was kind of fun. Just want to kind of reinforce a couple of points that were made earlier, like Olga mentioned building products, which I think is, like build as little a product as you can, and I think take it one step further and talk about delivering value against need and establishing need, and rather than focusing on the product, refocus or maintain focus for as long as possible on the need, and the product will create itself around that need, and that's really and value is like is should be the main driver for that. So that's one of the things that we were kind of pushing quite hard on. And then in terms of what Elias was saying, it's important to know your market well enough, the criticality of making kind of like decisions around what constitutes not only value but also things like failing fast. You were talking about failing fast. It's always really important to understand how you're defining your fail-safe scenarios, right? So you must design scenarios to fail, and you must design scenarios that are fail-safe. And if you can do that, then I think you have a chance of like establishing a good MVP.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for the team. Thank you.